Canada, NCA. We are Canada's true populist, nationalist, federal, and I should say registered federal party. We're 100% grassroots. This is all about the Canadian people for us. It's about putting our people first, Canadians first, and that amounts to love and compassion for our people and country. There's serious issues going on in our country and around the world. A lot of it is connected to what's called globalization, hyper-globalization, global world order, multilateralism, liberal international order. These are all intertwined. And we just had Davos last week, the World Economic Summit, which is extension of the United Nations. Today we're going to go through a roundtable on the SDG goals, which is UN Agenda 2030 goals, which Harper, Canada adopted in 2015, and it's being implemented on all levels of government by the LibCon Establishment at the municipal level, provincial, federal level. Do your research. We're going to talk about these goals. There's a lot of videos online that are condemning this global world order. It's a form of global communism, socialism, if you will. And it's dictating by these globalists, so-called elitists, their agenda on everyone else. That's what it's about. And I want to make very clear that the issues from the UN, from the sellouts in Ottawa, from both sides of the aisle, the LibCons, the sellout's been going on since Pierre Trudeau and every successive government, mistake not. It's just getting worse and worse. There is a replacement migration. But our point is that this isn't affecting a single province, a couple provinces, one region over another. It's affecting every single Canadian coast to coast, without question. We're all being impacted, and the only way to fight this is through national unity. Fragmentation, divisive politics is only helping this globalization of Canada. We believe the end goal is a post-national state, what we call a UN-like globalist village, where Canada will have no distinct identity, heritage, no distinct cultural norms. It's just going to be a country of people from all over the world and the division and conflict that comes with that. I don't think that's what we want as a country, we as a people. Let us know what you think. But we're standing up to that. I'm going to go into this video today because I think, you know, what we say at NCA, we always believe in going to the source. So this is one of the sources of what we're talking about. So we're going to go in there and provide some critique of what they're saying. It's pretty mind-blowing. But remember, this global agenda, these goals, which Harper adopted, the so-called conservatives adopted in 2015. These goals are, it's about systematic globalization. These are system goals, global system goals imposed on you and your family. You had no say on this. These goals are sugar-coated, but at the end of the day, they're all about global world order. Open borders, just flood the migrants in. Equal rights for everyone when you're here. Progressive identity theory, everything, bring all that in. Extreme inclusiveness, extreme multiculturalism, that's all part of it. Erosion of sovereignty, citizenry. It's all about global citizenry. Global world order. You know what they say, leave no one behind. This is what their agenda is. In our opinion, this is the worst form of tyranny. To have a single power controlling the whole world. We don't support that. We believe in strong nation states working mutually together. That's something we NCA supports. But I'm gonna get into this. But another big thing that's you're gonna see from the video is the UN IPCC climate change agenda. This is exaggerated fear-mongering. It's a fabricated existential threat to help bring about global world order. It's scaring people into it. And it started with Maurice Strong, Canadian, through the Earth Summit, followed by Mulroney in 1992, UN Agenda 21, and then we go forward to 2015, UN Agenda 2030, Harper, which is being implemented on all levels of government. This is what's going on behind the scenes. The LibCons are multilateralists. Just like Merkel, we did a video last week on Merkel. They are no different from Merkel. They try to pretend not to be, some of them, but that's what they are when you do your research. So let's get to the video. Share your comments. You know, we want to educate, we want to inform you, and we appreciate coming back at us as well. So this is just the introduction. This is the UN spokesperson today. Oh my God, I can't believe what he says later on. It's very revealing. Eventually their true colors come out, but we'll just start it off here.
Administrator of the United Nations Development Program, welcome to you. Wanjuhi Joroje is a climate activist and a global shaper from Kenya. Welcome. Mohammed Al-Junda is an activist focusing on refugee rights and education. And Paul Stoffels is Vice Chairman of the Executive Committee and Chief Scientific Officer at Johnson & Johnson. Thank you so much to all of you for being here today. And please, let's welcome our panel. And Achim, I'd like to begin with you because you have been a champion of the Sustainable Development Goals from the very beginning. You also had a role to play in the 2015 Paris Climate Accord. Set the stage for us. What does our world look like in 10 years if we do not take dramatic action now?
I think it will be a more stressed world. It will be a world where if we do not believe in our capacity to work together to solve these problems, we will increasingly turn against each other. That may be sometimes for geographical or political reasons, but just look at the debate right now on, are we going to act together on climate change, or are we going to have to change our global trade system to the point where those countries who are not coming along and going towards a low carbon economy will in future have to pay tariffs in order to import goods into another part of the world that is acting on this issue. So I think the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, should first and foremost be understood as an extraordinary collective view of the future, of the greatest risks we face, and therefore also the goals we need to set ourselves to address them. That's the 17 goals. But much more important perhaps in here are some of the lessons from the recent past. Leave no one behind. It's a very easy phrase to cite, but just think for a moment the evening news last year. Riots, people stepping out on the streets, dissatisfaction, unfairness, inequality. Those are the drivers that are also dividing us in our own society. So the SDGs are not just a set of lofty goals, they're actually a risk map of the world, and they are a proposition on how to address them.
But young people.
Leave no one behind. It sounds good on the surface, but this is all coming from these globalist so-called elitists dictating. And these are sugar-coated goals, and it's all about their power over the rest of humanity. The erosion of the nation state. I'm going to fast forward the video now to some key parts.
We'll get to that a little bit later in our program. But Mohammed, I'd like to turn to you first so you can tell us a little bit more about your story, because you're very much fighting for refugee rights, for education. You have a school, actually, that you started in Lebanon, and it's an initiative which has really been informed by your own personal experience. You're a Syrian refugee, you settled first in Lebanon, now you're in Sweden. Tell us more.
Well, as you all know, in 2011, a revolution happened in Syria. My parents had to take...
I'm going to have to put this in context. Sweden, like Germany, France, UK, allowed in hundreds of thousands of migrants. Sweden has epidemic rapes, extreme migrant violence. There's growing no-go zones. There's conflict in the society, growing conflict between traditional Swedes and these migrants coming in. But here's this guy. He's living in Sweden now. But let's hear what he says.
Part of the protest is the protests were for the future of the children. They were to make Syria a place where we can actually develop and improve ourselves. That led to my mom getting arrested twice and then get death threats, so we had to flee the country. And when we arrived to Lebanon, which is a neighboring country to Syria, I couldn't go to school for almost 3 years. So I decided to set one for myself. And now the school teaches around 740 students every 6 months, and we've been running for around 5 years. So we graduated around 7,000 participants, including women, men, and children. The women and men we work with are mainly the mothers. And now I live in Sweden, and I took the mission of trying to bring back the focus on certain issues that in a sense has been forgotten by the public, because activism is like anything else, is a trend. And we do realize, as people who come from those backgrounds, that climate change is important because we live the impacts of it every day. But we need to bring back the focus on certain issues like education, for us to lift those in such regions up so they can start caring about climate change.
Education, SD.
Okay, we're going to move ahead on this. We're going to get back to Mohammed. His true colors come out in the end.
Sustainable Development Goals. I'd just like to check with the team to see if we perhaps have some results on that. I'm not seeing them at the moment.
Okay, we're going to move ahead. This is pretty revealing here.
To provide the world with a scorecard and a way to monitor progress, because clearly, in one sense, we are not getting there if you take everybody on the planet together. But it's also important to recognize where we are getting there, and many countries, many communities on many goals are actually progressing. And that's why I think it is important to not take the collective failure to move fast enough at the moment as a reason not to believe that this can work. On the other hand, and this is what we see also here at the World Economic Forum every year, too many for too long have simply held on to yesterday's economy, because it actually serves some very well. But what it has done is it has prevented tomorrow's economy from emerging, from being financed, from being put in the hands of those who actually have the most to benefit from it. So much of what we also are discussing when we talk about climate change or access to health is essentially inequality. And this is why I think we are in some ways at a point where people are now questioning the whole concept of globalization. You know, as human beings, we will always trade with each other. I think to argue that we would step away from a notion that we belong to, you know, planet Earth, in which many people do things with each other, would be a strange thing to do at the beginning of the 21st century. But the rules of the game are simply leaving too many people out. And so, back to what you said, I think we're now talking about the how. So the SDGs should not be, I think, questioned, because they are, in a sense, an expression of wisdom. They're not the answer to everything. The question is, how do we actually make it happen? And this is a very different time, including in terms of opportunities. Again, here in Davos, we learn a lot from the frontiers of technology, the digital economy that's emerging, extraordinary opportunities for inclusion. But if you don't make the right choices about how to use it, it could actually amplify inequalities. So this is, you know, human history repeats itself, and here we are at the beginning of the 21st century.
Mohammed, would you like to respond to that? I mean, what do you think is most important when it comes to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals?
I mean, we've always talked back in the refugee camps in the school that having 17 goals turns into more of a wish list rather than goals. And what we usually discuss on the streets, because that's where I was born, that's where I was raised, that's where my education from, the streets, is if you have a goal, which is 17 goals, which are a lot of goals, we need to start prioritizing some of them. The problem is if we continue treating those goals as depending on what's trending on the activism, like for example nowadays climate change, we won't be able to go anywhere. Because if we're going to discuss climate change, because it's the biggest issue and the World Economic Forum have putting emphasis on it since we came here, which is an important issue, and we've been impacted by it in the Middle East, and I do recognize it, and it's going to affect everyone. So we need to work on it. But the problem is if the focus is so much on that specific issue and other issues, not by United Nations, but by other actors, are forgotten, like education, like inequality, like health. If those other issues are forgotten, the rest of the world wouldn't be able to care about climate change, wouldn't be able to join the fight for climate change. And we're seeing this happening.
So we're going to get back to this, but these goals, this is what Harper adopted, 17 goals. You had no say in it. They're being implemented on all levels of government. They're sugar-coated over. These are the goals here. They say no poverty, which is ridiculous, worldwide. Zero hunger either. Good health and well-being. Quality education for everyone coming in. Gender equality. Clean water, sanitation, affordable, clean energy. Decent work, economic growth worldwide. Industry, innovation, infrastructure, reduced inequalities. Sustainable cities, communities, and this is the extreme inclusion. Responsible consumption and production. Climate action through the UN IPCC, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, social justice, strong institutions, partnerships for these UN goals. Canadians have had no say on this. They are impacting everyone from coast to coast. I'm going to show more what's going on here later. But I'm going to shift in this video. And the truth comes out about this. That UN guy there. The truth starts coming out in the video. You'll see now. The true colors come out.
Interpretation of that no compromise. I think our young people are actually extremely wise and savvy people. Their call for no compromise is a judgment on the very bad compromises that they have been sold over the years. So I think what they're saying is no more of that kind of compromise. I think when I listen to young people today, whether they're engaged on environmental issues, on issues of human rights and education, on refugees, first of all, I find a generation that is extraordinarily well informed, much more able to judge for themselves what is right and wrong.
Are they? Or are they indoctrinated? Are they misinformed? Are they programmed?
Therefore, I think playing a much larger part in the public debate. So when we sit here in Davos and we talk about stakeholder capitalism, there are two things that are, in a sense, coming together. One is, look, capitalism is essentially about an economy in which capital really determines what happens. And so when we start talking about stakeholder capitalism, it's an interesting moment because what you're essentially positing is, look, capital cannot be the single and sole determinant of what happens in our society. So can stakeholders really be shaping that outcome if they don't own capital? So this is the debate of our time. And I think it's extremely interesting that we are at a point where clearly the paradigm of the 20th century, where economic growth per capita income were the determinants of success, clearly are being challenged left, right, and center, whether from an ecological point of view, from an equity, fairness point of view. So we are on the verge of having a new paradigm emerge, and I think it is the stakeholders that ultimately are reminding our economies that, look, you may own the capital, but we are the people who buy your products, we are the people who take your services, we are the people who actually own the money in this economy, even if you've given it to banks, to pension funds. And this is, I think, the interesting conversation of our time. It's not a compromise, it's a kind of reassertion that yes, there are people who have capital, but then there are markets, there are democracies, there are societies, and I think that is a discussion that is extremely timely because, frankly speaking, simply replicating the 20th century economy into the 21st century is going to lead us to more and more crisis. And here, if I may just say one thing to Mohammed, part of the reason why we have the Sustainable Development Goals is precisely to not allow governments or indeed capital markets to simply say this is the one thing that matters and everything else is secondary. The SDGs are by definition a reminder that living together on this planet with 8-9 billion people, you have to address these issues together. It's a systems agenda if you want, and within that each one of us can identify things we're passionate about. So the SDGs are, in a sense, the operating system of our 21st century society.
There it is there, right out of his mouth. System agenda. Operating system of the 21st century global world order dictated from those globalist so-called elites. You have no say on it. This is a system of control, system of dictating what our national societal goals should be. It couldn't be more clear.
And each one of us can put an app on it and say, I'm a refugee, I want to do something for the people I come from and I care about. But I don't think we need to trade one off against the other, because frankly speaking, climate change is not more or less important than education or employment, but it is probably the most dangerous issue right now on which inaction threatens us in the short term.
Mohammed,
Existential threat there. We're going to shift ahead here. The best parts are coming up.
So somebody asked the following question. What would make the SDGs meaningful to an everyday person? Do you perhaps have any ideas or insights?
I mean, I do think the SDGs are meaningful to most people because they are representations for the problem, of what their problem is. If you want to make them more meaningful, I think basically just highlight those people who's being impacted by who the SDGs represents, the stakeholders. I mean, I'll take a wide example. On the media, it's not only on those stages, but everywhere. You know, like the Amazon's fires, we all heard about it. We all felt deeply concerned when the Amazon's fire. But there's a lot of indigenous people who lost their homes because of the indigenous fires, who maybe died, and the deforestation continues in the Amazons. It didn't stop. We don't hear much of those indigenous people voices, not anymore at least. In Canada, they're building oil pipelines, and they're impacting the indigenous people's homes, and we're not hearing about those indigenous people much, who are one of the main stakeholders for climate change, who are suffering on the ground.
That's absurd there. Oh, poor Mohammed. You better get back to school. Get your facts straight, Mohammed. The Trans Mountain Pipeline is being built after political lag and incompetence. It is being built, and apparently it's going to be owned by Aboriginal people. 3 Aboriginal nations, Mohammed. So get your facts straight. This pipeline is being built. The stakeholders on the ground have ownership in it. There's a lot of pipelines in Canada that have not been built. Energy East, Gateway, Keystone XL. So get your facts straight, Mohammed. There is an attack on the oil sands. Carney, who used to be the Bank of Canada, head of the board of the Bank of Canada, is pushing to keep that oil sands in the ground. We import a lot of Saudi oil through Irving, which is a private refinery. They choose to do that. So Mohammed, get your facts straight. If anything, Canada gives too much attention to the stakeholders, we would argue. They let the stakeholders dictate, for the most part, in Canada. So Mohammed, get your facts straight. You're way off on that. We're going to shift ahead here. This is another important part. Unbelievable what this UN guy says. And this is the true colors coming out right here.
The collective can punish individual nations. I think we are far from that.
Oh my God, I couldn't believe what he just said there. I'm going to play it again.
Awareness, exposure, communications, all of these things we need more of. Achim, I'd like to also ask you about incentives as well, and perhaps your view on that, because somebody wrote the following question. Shouldn't countries that outperform the SDGs be commended, for example, an SDG bonus, and those that underperform be penalized?
Well, maybe in another century we'll live in a world where, the collective can punish individual nations. I think we are far from that, and I think, frankly speaking, the SDGs...
Are you frustrated that you don't have that message?
I couldn't believe that. So he's supporting the idea that the collective punish individual nations. This is called tyranny of the majority. And you could argue it's already going on in the UN by them singling out Israel on certain issues. This is already happening. This is very dangerous precedents coming from this global governance, liberal international order, multilateralism, globalism, hyperglobalization. So the power, what they see in the future, is collective punishment on individual nations who don't conform to the global governance. And this is the ultimate form of tyranny. Very scary world. This is why we have to stop this. We support the NCA pulling back significantly from the UN, cutting all voluntary funding. And we have a number of other measures, but we would review all these international agreements the LibCon has signed us onto, which is eroding our sovereignty. We're not against the UN providing information, but us as a nation, us as a people, will decide what our goals are and what we will do as a nation. It's up to us, not up to the UN and their offshoots. This is, you see the paradigm here. This is complete infringement on who we are as a people. Thank you to the LibCons. Unbelievable. We're going to move ahead here, and our friend Mohammed, his true colors come out here.
You're the future. So therefore I'd like to give you the final.
He's the future.
Well, there's a point that I haven't said, and that I feel for all of us it's important to remember and to start saying, young and old, that which we don't talk about it much because it's shameful, especially for countries that are here, and countries like the US, and that's the producing of weapons that not only contribute to the CO2 emissions which affect climate change, but also fuel wars. We need to stop that. We need to, and they're not gonna stop that. Not the companies, not the governments. They're not gonna stop that. We're gonna stop that. The people's gonna stop that. My call of action is to take the streets, protest, because no one's gonna listen to you. I've been here for 4 days and no one has been listening. So take the streets, protest, because if we're going down, we're gonna take them down with us.
I've just been told by my producer that we can leave.
If we're going down, we're going to take them down with us. This guy could be a terrorist. He sounds like he's a terrorist soon to be. His true anti-American sentiment comes out. Why did he single out the U.S.? The U.S. isn't the only country producing arms. Iran's doing it. Saudi's buying lots of them. Germany, France, Europe, Russia, China. What's wrong with arms? What's wrong with protecting the nation state? This is scary. Take the guns away. Not only from the people, take them away from the countries. You see this is the global governance. It's happening in the nation state. Take the guns away. But then take the guns, all the means away from the nation states to be able to defend themselves. And that Muhammad, look at him. Like I said, why is he singling out the United States? His prejudices, his biases are coming out. You know what they expect too? They want what we have. They expect everything to be redistributed. Leave no one behind. This is the global communism, if you will. The global world order, the LibCons are fully in bed with. Multilateralism. It can't be more clear. I'm going to go to the closing statement from our UN friend there.
To better practices. That is my everyday job.
I will try to do what I have been inspired by those who, have shown us sometimes the way forward, which is that you should never not say what you believe is right, even when the times are wrong. And I think, I operate in an environment right now where a great deal of what I sometimes have to say is not necessarily what people would like to hear. But I think this is part of the ethic and the core of the United Nations also, that it stands for what is right, and even when the times are tough, you should have that sense that there at least there is a willingness to stand by principles, and yet we fail every day because at the end of the day we are not floating in some free space. So I think for me personally it is a reason to be in the United Nations today, because in fact the very things that it stands for are so often under assault.
Just briefly, Paul.
Under assault? Unbelievable what this guy, he's taken the higher ground. So where's the values in the UN? When Saudi Arabia is chair of the Women's Human Rights Commission. When Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan are on the Women's Rights Commission. They're on the Human Rights Committee. Where's the values and principles in that? Where's the values and principles in promoting Sharia through the UN? Or the values and principles in pushing this global tyranny on humanity? These people are scary. These people are dangerous. Very dangerous. This goes beyond 1984. George Orwell. Share your comments. I'm going to shift to Canada here briefly. I want to show you evidence, because there's some people out there who, whether they're trolls, they're programmed, they're in denial. These LibCons, they're in denial about the facts, about what's going on. So we're going to shed a few facts on this. This is the government of Canada at the UN. This was in October. Quote, "We must work together like never before." See, this is the multilateralism, liberal international order to realize this sustainable development, says Canada at the UN. Where did they get this little glebe from? Look at them. These people are a joke, these LibCons. It says, quote, "We have to find new ways of doing things for silos to be broken between governments and civil society, between government and the private sector, north-south, traditional, the so-called like-minded, non-traditional, like-minded." So this is all about global governance. To harness this opportunity, starting with the most vulnerable. Small island states, we must all work together. Scientists, multilateral institutions, regional banks, investors, civil society, like never before, he urged. This is multilateralism, liberal international order textbook. His name is Mr. Blanchard. Then he goes on about the peacekeeping. Some diversion about that. UN peacekeeping. We want to pull Canadian troops out of that. We don't want to put our troops in harm's way. We believe the UN is an amoral institution. But these multilateralists, the LibCons, they're all for it. Don't be fooled. And these are the so-called 17 agenda. This is from the Government Canada website. Canada takes action on 2030 agenda for sustainable development. It was in September 2015 under Harper and the so-called conservatives that this was adopted, this agenda. It's a goal, the call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, ensure all people enjoy peace and prosperity, global governance, multilateralism. Leave no one behind. Open the borders. There it is there. Canada makes important strides towards 2030 agenda, national strategy. This is a national strategy released June 28, 2019. Here's some facts on it. It was in September 2015 under Harper. He snuck this through when no one was watching. The budget in 2018, they're spending almost $60 million. $60 million of your tax dollars. It's over 13 years. It's about $5 million a year of your tax dollars on implementation across Canada. That's only federally. A big part of it is Statistics Canada collecting data on you and your family. They claim there was all this public consultation. When was it? March 15, 2019? May 15, did you hear about it? I didn't hear about this. Feedback from almost 2,500 Canadians? Were they all LibCons? And then they're giving out grants, 1.5 to, there's a SDG funding program to raise public awareness, gather community level feedback, This is the money they're wasting on it. But this is what's going on. At NCA, we say, take our country back. The country has been taken by these globalist sellouts in Ottawa. starting with Pierre Trudeau and every successive government from then. That's when this country, financially, economically, environmentally, socially, culturally, turned for the worse. That's why we say take our country back from the globalist sellouts, these crooked, entrenched LibCons. That's our message. Join NCA. And the real bitter irony here about Agenda 2030, this global governance, multilateralism, they had mass migration in 2019 into Canada. It was over 1 million through all streams. And they all parrot, LibCons, they all parrot that diversity is our strength. But what's really going on is they're killing off the diversity in this country. They're killing off the diversity in Germany, Sweden, France, Norway, UK. Through the mass migration, traditional native populations are being replaced. If this continues, there will not be a Swede as we know them, or a German, a Canadian, Britain, English, French. This beautiful diversity in our world is under attack. These distinct people, traditional Canadians, are being replaced demographically through this multilateralism, globalism agenda. Please think about these issues seriously. Think about your children, if you have any, what kind of future they're going to have. But this is what's really going on. You're not going to hear this in the fake mainstream media, but that's the truth. This is actually an attack on diversity. Flooding all these people in. Under Harper or Trudeau, it doesn't matter. 190 countries. Everyone will be homogenized, interbred. Globalist village, no distinct identity. The true diversity of Canada